We are back. Mark Stewart, Chief Tax Officer at Jackson Hewitt Tax Services, is answering all of your questions here. All right, we're coming back to this. We have a viewer who says, can a mother with no earned income claim the child tax credit?
Absolutely. You do need income for the earned income credit. And it's a good idea to look at your total activity for the year, because a lot of people don't understand what is income. They think if it's part-time or not full-time or it's a hobby, that doesn't count. But yes, you can file the child tax credit and a great deal more, quite frankly. But income is a prerequisite on several of those, and there is a de minimis amount of income that is required, but some of that's counted by other activities. And most people don't realize this, but you had to have some income. How did you live? How did you eat? And so what is income is usually a question that people get hung up on. I don't have a full-time job, or I'm not an employee. But once you look and pull the covers back a little more, you might be surprised what you have. So talk to a tax pro, make sure you understand what income is, because there is an income requirement, not too big, and a bigger one to get some of that is refundable. A lot of the child credit is offsettable against your tax liability, but a portion of it is refundable if you meet certain other criteria. But it, much like the earned income credit, often misunderstood and often overlooked, and there's a lot of myths and misunderstanding on a lot of the credits on who files first gets them. Do you have to be the birth parent? Does the husband get it even if he files first? And you're in a separated or contested situation? Watch out for those credits. A lot of mistakes happen with those.
Good to know there too. Another viewer says, I have to pay taxes this year. My husband took money out of his 401k after rolling it over into an IRA. Does it make any difference if the amount is saying his total retirement is incorrect on our tax forms? The amount we are paying taxes on are correct.
Yeah, you want to have that to be accurate, because if you're starting to withdraw, and especially if you withdraw early from those retirement funds, rolling over also creates a great deal of confusion at the IRS and at banks, because you have to show that it was put back into a qualified plan or they're going to tax it all. But what I think I heard you say was it was rolled from one to another, and then early withdrawal, which creates a whole host of different problems, the least of which is taxability. And in fact, if you withdrew it before the age of entitlement, which is 50, then there's a 10% penalty on top of that. So all I'll simply say is you got kind of a lot bundled in there. I would make sure you talk with a pro or do the work yourself to make sure you understand, one, what is correct to put on your tax return, because if you put too much, the IRS isn't really going to pull that back. And secondly, more importantly, that whatever you did matches what's on the IRS system. Otherwise, as I mentioned at the start, if your data doesn't match their data, and it seems like you got a lot of moving data there, they're going to send you a questionnaire and ask you, now, was it a full withdrawal? Did you roll this withdrawal over? Did you roll it over and withdraw some? What exactly did you do? And then you get into that round robin with the IRS, and it generally really takes up a lot of time and money, and you have to hire a pro. So make sure you got it on the front end done correctly. And if not, you can always amend. You have 3 years to amend it, but make sure you've done it correctly and didn't put too much on there. That's the number one mistake I see when people start messing around with their retirement funds. They may roll it over, they get a 1099-R distribution, they put that on their tax return as taxable, but maybe they reinvested in another IRA or another 401k and it wasn't taxable. IRS isn't necessarily going to always fix that for you. So when you start doing tricky transactions with your retirement funds, make sure you get some help, or make sure you do the work yourself and understand it, but report it correctly, or you can pay too much or get caught up in that IRS questionnaire, email, notification, maelstrom, and that never helps anybody with their stress.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question we have, if you get somebody to do your taxes that file it and send it to their account, what can you do to get it back?
Oh, if you had somebody misdirect your refund, yeah, that happens. And unfortunately, it's one of the sad byproducts of this time of year. Bad people creep into the system. We call them ghost preparers, but they go by a lot of different names. Basically, they're people full of false promises, and they may or may not have, gotten your best interest at heart. So all I'll simply say is, if you've had your refund stolen, which is what it sounds like you're saying, or a portion of it, you probably need to talk to a trained and experienced tax professional, and then weigh in with the IRS. It's not as easy as just getting a do-over, and filing a simple form to pull that money out, because once the IRS issues it, they're assuming that all the bank account, the routing number, the preparer information was all correct. So undoing it is a pretty difficult situation, and then then usually there's some criminal activity involved. You have a much better leg to stand on. But if they just took money and you said okay and they took too much, that gets into a little bit more of a complicated he said, she said situation, and you really do need to proceed carefully. May have to involve law enforcement. But anything that's done criminally can be undone with your taxes with a qualified professional and knowing what to do, what to file, and who to contact. But it's not always that easy. So that's why going carefully on the front end and picking a trained, experienced, convenient professional with some credentials that has been checked by you on their reviews, it matters who does your taxes. It's the single largest payday for many people. Go carefully, especially in these final days when people get in a hurry. There's lots of help out there, lots of extra hours. But if you've been wronged, you can get some help. There are alternatives and some recourse available to you.
Amazing. Thank you. If you missed anything, you can find it on our website. WFMY News 2 at 6 is next.